In the dim light of the kitchen, I stood frozen as my boss's voice thundered, slicing through the air like a knife. "You're worthless! How dare you!" His words faded when he spotted me shielding his daughter, Emily, from a gang of bullies in the park just days later. They didn't see the bruises I bore from defending her. They couldn't know I was the only one who believed in her, that I had sacrificed everything for her safety. Now, as I faced him again, I felt the weight of our bond. "My name is Mira. I will protect her, no matter the cost." My heart raced as I watched Henry's expression shift from anger to surprise, his brows furrowing in confusion. Clara, still clutching my hand, looked up at him with wide eyes, uncertain of his reaction. I could sense the tension thickening in the air, each moment suspended like a fragile thread waiting to snap. As he took a tentative step closer, I felt both a surge of defiance and a wave of trepidation wash over me. Would he lash out at me again? Or would he finally see what I had been trying to protect all along? "Clara, sweetheart, are you okay?" Henry's voice was softer now, laced with genuine concern that caught me off guard. He knelt down to her level, his eyes searching her face for any sign of distress. I could see his tough exterior begin to crumble in the face of his daughter's vulnerability. It was as if, for the first time, he was truly aware of the world beyond his business empire, a world where love and kindness had a place. Clara nodded slowly, still shaken, but the fear began to dissolve as she felt the warmth of her father's presence. That moment was crucial. It was the first time I believed he could change. "I'm fine, Daddy. Mira helped me." Clara's voice broke through my thoughts, her small fingers still intertwined with mine. The pride in her voice swelled within me, and for a brief moment I felt invincible. Henry glanced at me, his eyes narrowing as if he was trying to decipher the unspoken language that had developed between Clara and me. In that moment, I felt a surge of purpose. I wasn't just the maid, I was Clara's ally, her protector, and perhaps, just perhaps, I could be something more to Henry, a catalyst for change. Henry straightened up, his gaze shifting from Clara to me. "Why did you step in?" he asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves before I spoke. "Because she deserves to feel safe, just like anyone else. No one should be bullied or scared." My voice held steady, surprising even myself. I was tired of being afraid, tired of tiptoeing around Henry's volatile moods. I had defended Clara, and now I was ready to defend my own dignity. He looked taken aback, perhaps unsure how to respond to such honesty. "And what about you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you feel safe?" The question hung between us, heavy with meaning. I felt a lump form in my throat as I considered my own life. The endless hours of scrubbing floors, the silent tears shed in the shadows of his mansion. I realized then that I had been hiding, not just from him, but from the possibility of standing up for myself. "I haven't felt safe in a long time," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "But I have to be brave, for her." I gestured to Clara, who was now looking between us, her curiosity piqued. Henry's expression softened further, the layers of his stoic facade peeling back to reveal a flicker of understanding. I could see him wrestling with something deep within himself, a conflict between the man he was and the father he wanted to be. "I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you before," he finally said, his voice steadying. "I've been under a lot of pressure." I was taken aback. This was not the Henry I was used to. He often dismissed anyone who challenged him, preferring to maintain his rigid control. Yet here he was, taking a step toward vulnerability, acknowledging his faults. I didn't want to forgive him completely. I was still haunted by the sting of his earlier words, but something shifted within me. Maybe there was hope for us all. Clara spoke up then, her innocence cutting through the tension. "Daddy, can we keep Mira? She helps me a lot." My heart warmed at her plea, the sincerity in her voice reminding me of the bond we had forged through shared laughter and quiet conversations. Henry looked at her, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. There was a flicker of a smile as he pondered her request, his eyes glancing back at me. It was as if he was beginning to recognize the importance of my role in Clara's life, not just as a maid, but as a mentor and friend. "I'll think about it," he replied, his voice gentle yet firm. I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and trepidation. This was a small victory, but victories, no matter how small, were worth celebrating. I could already picture Clara's face lighting up at the thought of me being more than just someone who cleaned her home. It would mean so much to her, and in turn, it would mean so much to me. As we walked back into the house, I felt a tentative shift in our dynamic. Clara's laughter echoed in the grand foyer, and for the first time, the mansion didn't feel quite so oppressive. Henry lingered behind us, his thoughts a mystery I couldn't unravel yet. My resolve grew stronger. I knew I could stand up for myself while advocating for Clara. With every step I took, I felt the chains of fear loosening their grip, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and community. I glanced back at Henry, catching his eye. Perhaps there was still hope for understanding between us. I wanted to believe that our fates were intertwined now, a delicate thread woven through the shared experiences of Clara's laughter, my courage, and Henry's willingness to change. Together, we could create an environment where kindness reigned, a place where Clara could thrive. I was ready to fight for that, no matter how difficult the journey ahead would be. As I navigated through the lavish hallways of Henry's estate, my thoughts danced between the crisp echoes of his reprimands and the soft giggles of Clara. The morning sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating the ornate furniture and casting warm shadows on the floor. In that moment, I realized that the oppressive weight of Henry's words could no longer silence my spirit. I had witnessed something beautiful in Clara, a purity that inspired me to rise above the disdain directed my way. The next day, as I cleaned Clara's playroom, I could still feel the echoes of our shared laughter reverberating in my mind. I found myself smiling at the colorful toys scattered around, each one holding a memory of our growing friendship. Clara had an extraordinary ability to find joy in the simplest things. A gift that reminded me of the resilience we both possessed. I often thought of how I could introduce her to new experiences, to help her discover the world outside those four walls, and to empower her in ways that had been denied to her. A few days later, while organizing her art supplies, Clara burst into the room with excitement, her eyes shining like stars. She had painted a beautiful picture of a rainbow, filled with colors that seemed to leap off the canvas. "Look, Mira, this is for you," she exclaimed, holding the painting close to her chest. My heart swelled with warmth as I accepted her gift, realizing that this simple act of kindness meant the world to her. It was a reminder that our connection transcended the roles we played. In that moment, we were just two souls bound together by friendship. As I admired her work, I felt a surge of determination. I knew that Clara deserved more than the confines of her father's expectations. I wanted to help her explore her talents, to show her that her voice mattered. I envisioned setting up a small art exhibit in the estate's grand foyer, showcasing Clara's creations and inviting guests to appreciate her gifts. I imagined Henry walking through, stopping to admire his daughter's work, maybe even realizing just how remarkable she truly was. After dinner that evening, when Henry retired to his study, I seized the opportunity to approach him. My heart raced as I knocked on the door, uncertain of how he would respond to my request. "Henry, may I come in?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. When he gestured for me to enter, I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with books and papers that spoke of his relentless pursuit of success. "Mira," he said, glancing up from his work, "what is it? I hope this is important." His tone was curt, but there was a softness in his eyes that hinted at the man I believed he could be. I hesitated for a moment, gathering my thoughts. "It's about Clara," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. She's a wonderful artist, and I believe she deserves to share her talent with others. I want to organize an art exhibition for her." The words rushed out, fueled by my desire to advocate for Clara's potential. Henry leaned back in his chair, a skeptical look crossing his face. "An exhibition? For what purpose, Mira? To showcase what? She's different. People won't understand her," he replied, skepticism lacing his words. "But that's exactly why it's important," I exclaimed, unable to hold back my passion. "Clara's work is filled with beauty and imagination. She has a voice that deserves to be heard. If we don't give her a chance, how will anyone ever see her for who she truly is?" His brow furrowed, and I could see the conflict within him. I pressed on, the words tumbling out of me. "You may not realize it, but Clara has so much to offer. She's not just your daughter, she's a talented artist with a unique perspective. She deserves to shine, just like anyone else. Please consider it." For a moment, the room was silent, tension crackling in the air. Henry's gaze softened, and I saw the flicker of something deeper in his eyes, a hint of longing for connection, for understanding. "I'll think about it," he finally said, his voice quieter now. "But you must understand, this world can be harsh." I nodded, knowing that I had planted a seed of hope. As I left the study, I felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. I had taken a step toward advocating for Clara, and perhaps toward changing Henry's perspective. The bond between us was growing stronger, woven through a shared understanding that we all had a role in supporting Clara. In the days that followed, I continued to nurture Clara's creativity, organizing art sessions where she could express herself freely. I watched in awe as she filled canvases with vibrant colors, her laughter mingling with the strokes of her paintbrush. We talked about her dreams, and I could see the spark in her eyes as she imagined a world where she could showcase her art. However, I also sensed Henry's hesitation lingering in the background. His occasional dismissive remarks about Clara's talent reminded me of the uphill battle ahead. I turned to Agnes for advice, knowing she would offer the support I needed. Sitting across from her, I shared my concerns and aspirations for Clara's future. "You have a good heart, Mira," Agnes said gently, her voice filled with reassurance. "It won't be easy, but persistence can break through barriers. Remember, you're not just fighting for Clara, you're standing up for what is right." Her words resonated deeply within me. I felt invigorated, determined to create a space where Clara could flourish and prove to Henry and the world that she was more than her disability. With every brushstroke, I envisioned a brighter future for Clara, a future where kindness and understanding would reign, and love would conquer fear. It was time to take action, to rally support for Clara's art exhibition. I began reaching out to friends, neighbors, and anyone willing to help make this dream a reality. I wanted to show Henry that his daughter's artistry could not only change her life, but touch the hearts of others as well. As I ventured into this new chapter, I felt hope bubbling within me. A quiet assurance that together we could build a bridge between Henry's world and Clara's vibrant spirit, one that could redefine our understanding of family and love. Join me in this journey of transformation as we witness the unbreakable bond of love flourish against all odds. If you're inspired by this story, subscribe for more updates on Clara's artistic journey and the unfolding tale of resilience and hope. As I watched Clara's face light up at the small triumph of completing her drawing, I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. In that moment, I understood that I wasn't just teaching her to express herself. We were both learning to find joy in the smallest victories. Henry, busy with his phone calls and meetings, seemed oblivious to the world outside his office. I often wondered how he could overlook the beauty of these moments, but my heart ached for him too. Beneath his hard exterior, I sensed a man battling his own inner demons, a father who loved his daughter but perhaps didn't know how to show it fully. One afternoon, Clara and I had decided to venture outside into the garden. The sunlight danced through the leaves, creating a mosaic of light and shadows on the ground. Clara giggled, her laughter ringing out like a melody, and I couldn't help but smile. It was easy to forget the tension that lay beneath the surface of our lives. I felt empowered as I held her hand, guiding her through the flowers. In that space, I felt alive and free, far away from the harshness of Henry's words. Clara, with her innocent spirit, had turned my world upside down, and I was grateful for every shared laugh and every tender moment. However, I also knew that my relationship with Henry was becoming increasingly strained. Every day, he seemed to slip further into his work, treating me more like a cog in a machine than a human being. It was as if my existence had become a mere background noise to his ambition. Yet, there were fleeting moments when I caught a glimpse of the man beneath the businessman, like when he would watch Clara draw, his eyes softening as he admired her concentration. It left me pondering whether he even recognized the love he had for her, buried beneath layers of stress and expectations. One evening, as I was cleaning the kitchen after dinner, Henry walked in, and the air between us shifted. He looked weary, lines etched deeper into his face than before. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. "Mira," he began, hesitating as if the words were foreign to him. "I need to talk to you about Clara." The seriousness in his tone made my heart race. "She seems happier lately, I've noticed." His admission surprised me. It was the first time he acknowledged the changes I had witnessed, and I wasn't sure how to respond. "She is, sir. We've been spending a lot of time together." I kept my voice steady, hoping to convey the importance of our bond without sounding defensive. "I don't want to interfere," he continued, his voice low. "But sometimes I worry. Maybe I don't know how to connect with her like you do." I was stunned. The walls he had built around himself were beginning to crack, allowing a sliver of vulnerability to shine through. "Everyone has their own way of connecting, Henry," I said gently. "Clara needs love in all its forms. What matters is that you try. She feels your presence. She just wants to know you care." Henry paused, absorbing my words. I could see the conflict in his eyes, and for a moment, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something significant. It was as if I had just handed him a key to unlock the door to a deeper relationship with Clara. A few days later, I found myself in the living room with Clara, who was surrounded by her coloring books and markers, her eyes sparkling with creativity. While she was busy, I took a moment to reflect on my own life and the role I played in this extraordinary family. As I watched Clara concentrate, I thought of my mother, Agnes, and her unwavering belief in standing up for what was right. Her encouragement echoed in my mind, reminding me that it was not just about serving, it was also about standing firm in my own values. When I returned to the kitchen, I noticed Henry standing by the window, looking out at the setting sun. "You know, Mira," he said without turning around, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I want to try harder with Clara." His voice was softer now, almost hopeful. "That's wonderful to hear, Henry," I replied, feeling a rush of warmth at his willingness to change. "She needs you more than you realize. She admires you." There was a long pause before he turned to face me. "I think I've been so caught up in my work that I forgot what truly matters. Clara deserves better from me." His admission hit me hard. I could see the gears turning in his mind, a man grappling with responsibility and love. "It's never too late," I reassured him. "Small gestures can mean the world to her. Just being present is enough." I could see the flicker of determination ignite in Henry's eyes. He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for a new journey, one that would require courage and vulnerability. Later that week, I noticed a change in the house. Henry began spending more time with Clara, joining her for tea parties and even encouraging her art. The laughter that filled the rooms was infectious, a reminder that kindness and compassion could indeed flourish in the most unlikely places. Every evening, after Clara was settled, I would sit with my mother, sharing stories about the day. "It's incredible to see how Clara is blossoming," Agnes remarked one night.
And Henry, he seems to be realizing what it means to be a father. Yes, it's as if he's finally finding his way back to her, I agreed, feeling a swell of hope. I just hope he stays committed to this path. My mother's smile encouraged me. Change is often slow, but every little step counts. Just keep being there for both of them. As the days turned into weeks, I could see the family dynamic evolving. There was still much to overcome, but I sensed a newfound strength in all of us. A strength that began with love, compassion, and the courage to confront our fears and misunderstandings. With Clara's laughter echoing through the halls and Henry's softer gaze becoming a constant, I dared to dream of a future where we could all thrive together, united in the bonds we had forged through adversity. With each passing day, the bond between Clara and me deepened, transforming our moments together into something sacred. I found joy in teaching her simple tasks that helped bolster her confidence. One afternoon, as we sat together in the sunlit garden, I encouraged her to practice painting. I laid out colors and brushes, and Clara's eyes sparkled with excitement. She mixed hues, her small fingers turning clumsy strokes into vibrant swirls on the canvas. As I watched her immerse herself in creativity, I felt a warmth spreading in my chest, a feeling I hadn't recognized before, a sense of purpose beyond my daily duties. Henry, noticing the changes in Clara's demeanor, began to seek me out more frequently. He'd catch glimpses of our laughter from afar, his face softening as he witnessed the genuine joy in his daughter's eyes. I had always seen him as a stern figure, a man who ruled his household with an iron fist, but this new side of him intrigued me. One evening, he approached me after dinner, hesitating before speaking, as if grappling with his own vulnerability. "Mira," he began, his voice lower than usual, "I'm grateful for what you're doing for Clara. She's been happier lately." His acknowledgement was unexpected, and I didn't know how to respond. I simply nodded, unsure whether I should mention the friction we had experienced not long ago. Yet, in that moment, I realized that maybe Henry was beginning to understand the depth of connection we shared as a makeshift family. I could see the wheels turning in his mind as he watched me interact with his daughter. It was a small step, but a significant one that hinted at a change he was willing to embrace. My mother, Agnes, continued to be my unwavering support. One evening, I visited her after my shift, the weight of the day still on my shoulders. "I wish you could see yourself the way I see you," she said, her eyes sparkling with pride. "You're changing lives, Mita, not just Clara's, but also Henry's." I took a deep breath, feeling the exhaustion seep into my bones. "But it feels like an uphill battle. I'm scared that my efforts might not last." Agnes shook her head firmly, her expression serious. "You have a strength that's rare. Change doesn't come overnight, but every moment you spend with Clara is a step toward healing. You're planting seeds, my dear. Trust that they will grow." Her words lingered in my mind long after I left, providing the encouragement I needed to face the next day. The following week brought an unexpected challenge. Henry had scheduled an important business meeting at home, and I sensed the tension in the air as the day approached. It was a gathering of influential clients, and Henry was determined to impress them. Clara, unaware of the event's significance, was drawn to the hustle and bustle. I could see her excitement, but I worried about how the atmosphere might affect her. On the day of the meeting, the house was a whirlwind of activity. I busied myself with preparations, my heart racing as I tried to anticipate Henry's needs. Just as the guests arrived, Clara wandered into the main room, her curious gaze taking in the unfamiliar faces. I quickly ushered her back to the garden, hoping to shield her from the overwhelming energy of the meeting. However, Clara's independent spirit flared up, and she insisted on being part of the action. "Please, Mira, I want to meet them," she pleaded, her voice soft yet filled with determination. I hesitated, torn between wanting to protect her and understanding her desire to be included.
Just then, Henry entered, and his eyes locked onto Clara. A flicker of panic crossed his face as he realized she was about to step into the chaos he had created. "Clara, sweetheart, this isn't the place for you," he said, his tone sharp yet laced with concern. At that moment, I felt an unfamiliar surge of defiance. "Henry," I interjected, my voice steady, "Clara deserves to be part of this too. She has just as much right to be here as anyone else." The room fell silent, and I could see the surprise on Henry's face. I had never spoken to him in such a way, but my protective instincts flared. Clara looked between us, her expression a mixture of confusion and hope. Henry took a step back, his jaw tightening as he considered my words. I dared to hold his gaze, remembering all the moments that had brought us to this point. Clara, sensing the tension, stepped forward and reached for her father's hand. "I want to show them my painting," she said softly. "Please, Dad." Henry's expression shifted as he looked down at his daughter. In that instant, the weight of his expectations began to dissipate. "All right, Clara," he said quietly, his voice softening. "Let's share your painting with them." I felt a sense of triumph wash over me as I realized that my conviction had sparked a change in him. As Clara ran to retrieve her artwork, I couldn't help but feel the fragile threads of our new family dynamic weaving tighter. The meeting continued, but now it held a different energy. Clara presented her painting with pride, illuminating the room with her enthusiasm. I stood by her side, a silent guardian, knowing that we were both breaking down barriers that had long kept us apart. In that moment, I understood that my actions had rippled beyond my expectations, creating waves of change not just for Clara, but for Henry as well. I had stepped into the role of advocate, and for the first time, I felt empowered, my voice resonating in the space between us, a voice that was no longer afraid to speak out against injustice. As the days passed, I noticed subtle changes in Henry. The harshness that typically marked his demeanor seemed to soften, especially when he interacted with Clara. He began to engage with her more, and I caught glimpses of a father whose heart had been buried beneath layers of ambition and pressure. It was as if my confrontation had sparked a flicker of awareness in him, illuminating the shadows that had long clouded his vision. I remembered the fear I felt when he had yelled at me, and now it felt almost surreal to observe how that same man could exhibit gentleness toward his daughter. I kept my distance, allowing their bond to deepen, but I remained vigilant, guarding Clara's heart and well-being. One afternoon, while I was preparing Clara's favorite snacks in the kitchen, I heard laughter echoing from the garden. Curiosity pulled me outside, and as I peeked around the corner, I was met with a scene that warmed my heart. Clara was giggling as Henry pushed her on the swing, a bright smile illuminating her face. I felt a swell of pride, not just for Clara, but for Henry as well. This was a side of him I hadn't expected to see, and I couldn't help but smile at the sight. In that moment, it felt like the walls around our world were beginning to crumble, giving way to a new landscape of understanding and connection. When they finished their swing session, Henry noticed me standing there and smiled. "Mira, come join us," he called. The invitation was unexpected, but it also felt like a bridge being built between us. I hesitated for a moment, the old fear creeping back, but then I reminded myself of the progress we had made, the bond Clara and I shared, and the strength I had discovered within myself. I stepped forward, grateful for the opportunity to share in this joyful moment. As I approached, Clara's face lit up even more. "Mira, come swing with me," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. I felt a warmth spread through me as I took a seat on the swing beside her. Together, we soared into the air, laughter mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. For that fleeting moment, nothing else mattered. I was simply a friend enjoying time with Clara and her father. The barriers that had once defined our roles began to blur, revealing the essence of our humanity. After our swing session, I took Clara inside to help her with some drawing.
She loved to express herself through art, and I enjoyed watching her creativity flow. Henry lingered in the doorway, observing us, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You're really good with her, Mira," he said, breaking the silence. I met his gaze, realizing that he was acknowledging my place in Clara's life and perhaps beginning to understand the importance of my role, not just as an employee, but as someone who genuinely cared for his daughter. "Thank you, Henry. Clara brings out the best in me," I replied, my voice steady despite the anxiety that bubbled beneath the surface. Clara glanced up at me, her eyes sparkling with admiration, and I knew I had to continue to be strong for her. She needed me, and I needed her too. As the days turned into weeks, I remained committed to nurturing Clara's spirit and supporting Henry's gradual transformation. I began to notice how he started to include me in discussions about Clara's care, seeking my opinion and valuing my insights. This was a stark contrast to how it had been before, when my input seemed irrelevant. Each small gesture of respect strengthened my resolve to stand up for what was right, not only for myself, but for Clara too. But with each step forward, I also felt the weight of my mother's expectations pressing on my shoulders. Agnes had always encouraged me to be fearless, to speak out against injustice, and I felt a growing urge to address the larger issues surrounding the treatment of those in our position. One evening, as I prepared Clara for bed, I reflected on my mother's unwavering support. I felt a renewed sense of determination to be a voice for those who couldn't speak up for themselves. As I tucked Clara into her blankets, she looked up at me with a serious expression. "Mira, do you think people can change?" Her question caught me off guard, and I paused for a moment to consider my answer. "Yes, Clara, I believe they can. Sometimes it takes time, but change is possible when we open our hearts to each other," I said softly, feeling the weight of my words. Her small hand grasped mine tightly, and I knew she understood the essence of what I was saying. That night, I found myself unable to sleep, the thought of injustice swirling in my mind. I wanted to fight for the rights of those like Clara, to advocate for kindness and compassion in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. I envisioned creating a support network for families facing similar struggles, providing them with resources and a sense of community. It was a daunting idea, yet the spark of determination within me blazed brighter. I knew I couldn't do it alone, and I would need to gather allies who shared my vision. The next day, I decided to approach Henry about my idea. I steeled myself, knowing that this conversation could lead to significant change. As I stood in front of him, I felt the weight of my words on the tip of my tongue. "Henry, can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in my stomach. He looked up from his paperwork, curiosity etched on his face. "Of course, Mira, what's on your mind?" he replied, his tone inviting. I took a deep breath, feeling Clara's spirit with me, and I began to share my vision for a support network. I spoke passionately about the need for understanding and resources for families with special needs, how important it was to foster compassion within our community. As I spoke, I watched Henry's expression shift from curiosity to contemplation, and I could tell he was absorbing every word. "I'd never thought about it that way," he finally said, his voice thoughtful. "You're right, there's so much more we could do to help." My heart soared at his response, knowing that we were on the brink of something significant. With newfound hope, I could feel the momentum building. Not just for Clara, but for all those who deserve to be seen and heard. I knew it would take time, effort, and the courage to challenge the status quo, but I felt more empowered than ever. Together, we could rewrite the narrative of our lives, creating a legacy built on kindness and understanding. As I walked away from that conversation, I felt a lightness in my heart. It was a reminder that the fight against injustice could lead to beautiful transformations, not just for myself, but for everyone around us. I could sense that the walls we had been trapped behind were finally starting to break down, allowing love, compassion, and change to fill the spaces left behind. And as I thought about the journey ahead, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for Clara, for Henry, and for the strength I had found within myself. If anyone has experienced a journey of change or witnessed an unexpected transformation in their lives, I invite you to share your stories. Together, we can inspire and uplift one another in this quest for kindness and justice. As I walked back to my small room in the servants' quarters, the weight of the day pressed heavily on my shoulders. The incident with Henry felt like a storm cloud hanging over me, but I had found a flicker of light in my bond with Clara. Her laughter, though rare, was a melody I clung to, and I knew I needed to nurture this friendship. It was more than just a connection. It was a promise to both her and myself that we would not be defined by our circumstances. The following morning, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow in the kitchen as I prepared breakfast. I could hear Clara's soft voice singing to herself as she played with her toys in the corner. It was moments like these that made the hard work worth it. I glanced up as Clara entered the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Mira, can we play today?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Of course, Clara." "What do you want to do?" I replied, feeling a rush of warmth. I wanted to be her escape, to create a safe haven for her amidst the chaos of her life. She thought for a moment, then suggested, "Let's build a fort, a castle." I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "A castle it is," I said, and we set to work, gathering blankets and cushions from the living room. As we constructed our fortress, Clara shared stories of brave knights and magical creatures, her imagination taking us far away from the confines of the mansion. It was a beautiful escape, and I wished it could last forever. Meanwhile, I noticed Henry watching us from a distance, his usual stern expression softened by curiosity. I could sense a change in him since that day in the garden. Maybe my actions had sparked something in him, an awareness of the world beyond his own. I caught his gaze and offered a small smile, unsure of how he would respond. To my surprise, he stepped closer, his posture less rigid than before. "What are you two up to?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Building a castle, Daddy, a great big one," Clara exclaimed, her excitement infectious. "That sounds wonderful," he said, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the caring father he had the potential to be. There was a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there before, and I felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand the importance of kindness. As days turned into weeks, Clara and I continued to strengthen our bond. I took her on little adventures around the sprawling estate, hiding treasures in the garden, creating scavenger hunts, and exploring the beauty of nature. Every time we laughed together, I felt a piece of my own burdens lift. Clara's spirit was a balm for my weary soul, and I was determined to protect her light. Henry, on the other hand, began to change as well. I caught him stealing glances at us during our playtime, and he occasionally joined in, albeit hesitantly. There were times when he would sit quietly, watching us build our imaginary worlds. I couldn't help but wonder if Clara's innocence was breaking down the walls he had built around himself. One afternoon, as we sat in our makeshift castle, Clara turned to me with a serious expression. "Mira, do you think my dad loves me?" Her question hit me like a freight train. I wanted to comfort her, to assure her that love transcended all barriers, but I hesitated. I knew Henry cared for her. I had seen it in the way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. Still, I wondered if he knew how to express it. "I think he loves you in his own way," I finally replied, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes people just need time to show it." Clara nodded, her brow furrowing in thought. "I wish he would tell me. I want him to be happy too." Her words pierced my heart. Here was a child, so pure and innocent, wishing for her father's happiness. I felt a surge of determination. If I could help Henry recognize his love for Clara, perhaps he could also learn to show it. The next evening, I found myself in the garden, staring up at the stars, contemplating how to approach Henry. It was an unusual quietness that enveloped the estate, and I seized the moment to confront my thoughts. I could hear Clara's laughter drifting from inside the house, a sound so precious that it propelled me forward. When Henry emerged from the house, I took a deep breath and turned to face him. "Henry, can we talk?" He paused, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "About what?" "About Clara," I began, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart. "I think she needs to hear you say the words." He frowned, as if the weight of my suggestion was heavy on his shoulders. "I'm not good with words, Mira. I never have been." "Sometimes it's not about being good with words, it's about being real," I replied softly. "She loves you so much, she just wants to feel that love reflected back." For a long moment he stared at me, uncertainty clouding his gaze. I could see the internal struggle within him, the conflict between his rigid upbringing and the love that simmered beneath the surface. Finally, he nodded slowly, as if acknowledging the truth of my words. "I'll try," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The sincerity in his tone filled me with hope. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but the first step had been taken. Clara's light had started to illuminate the darker corners of Henry's heart, and in that moment, I believed that we could transform our little world into something extraordinary. Together, we could create a family defined by love and understanding, breaking down the barriers that had kept us apart. I glanced back toward the house, where Clara was undoubtedly waiting, and I knew that our journey was only just beginning.